Welcome to History of Earth. Tonight, we'll explore one of the most fascinating and mysterious questions of all time. What if we're not the first civilization on this planet? This is a sleep documentary, a calm journey designed to help you relax, fall asleep easily, and still learn something new. So, find a quiet place, turn down the lights, let your thoughts slow down, and let's travel back through time. The story of Earth is older and stranger than we can imagine. Our planet formed around 4.5 billion years ago, long before any trace of human life. But what if somewhere within those vast ages, another advanced species once rose and fell long before us? Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Write in the comments. What part of the world are you in right now? And how do you relax after a stressful day? Some people listen to rain. Some light a candle. Some simply close their eyes and drift into calm sounds like this one. Whatever helps you unwind, this space is for you. Now, let's begin our journey. Imagine the Earth not as we know it today, with cities and lights, but as a young, restless planet. Continents were still forming, oceans were rising and falling, mountains were being born and destroyed in cycles of fire and ice. It's easy to forget that humanity, all of our recorded history, fits into juice. In the Jurassic, survival belongs to scale. Size is power, speed is life, and sound, the deep, earth-shaking calls, define the rhythm of this wild planet. To the west, herds of massive sauropods move slowly through fern-covered valleys. Their necks rise higher than houses, sweeping the air like living cranes. Each footstep leaves craters in the mud. A single swing of their tails could shatter trees. These are the giants of the Jurassic: Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, Apatosaurus. If humans walked among them, we would appear like shadows beside moving mountains. Our villages would need to hide in caves, surrounded by forests so dense that no sunlight could reach the ground. We would watch the sauropods pass like living storms, harmless yet unstoppable. But not all creatures here are peaceful. In the open plains, hunters stalk the herds. Allosaurus, a predator nearly 10 meters long, rules this land. Its eyes are forward, built for focus. Its teeth are knives, curved and sharp. When it runs, the ground itself seems to pulse. A human tribe on Jurassic Earth would need more than fire and tools. They would need silence, patience, and instincts as sharp as their weapons. Hunting would be impossible. Hiding would be survival. Night would be a time of whispers, not rest. At dusk, the forest glows with strange light. Fireflies swirl around the trunks of massive trees. Streams flow with volcanic warmth, and somewhere above, a pterosaur glides, its wingspan wider than a modern plane's. It hunts fish in shallow lakes, diving with a shriek that pierces the night. Imagine looking up and seeing the sky filled with wings, creatures half bird, half reptile, soaring in slow motion. The air would hum with their flight, a living sky. Now picture our ancestors trying to adapt. They would learn the rhythms of this place. They would move at dawn and hide at noon. They would gather near volcanic cliffs where few predators roam. Maybe they would build shelters inside petrified forests, carving dwellings into the roots of fallen giants. Over time, they would learn to use sound, deep drums to imitate thunder, to scare off beasts that rely on vibration. They would paint the walls of caves with stories of monsters that ruled before them. And those stories would become their protection, their faith, their history. But even the landscape itself would be alive. Volcanoes burst with molten light, shaking the earth. Ash clouds turn the day into twilight. Lightning cracks across humid skies. Rain falls hot and thick, steaming on the rocks. This is a world in motion, raw, violent, beautiful. In the swamps, ancient crocodiles the size of buses lurk beneath the surface, their eyes breaking the water like glowing stones. Insects crawl across the mud, leaving trails that sparkle faintly in the dim light. Every sound is amplified. The hiss of wind, the rumble of beasts, the whisper of rain. And through it all, the humans, few, scattered, silent, would find meaning in the chaos. They would worship the volcano as a god. They would see the sun as a protector and the night as a warning. They would name the dinosaurs not as animals, but as spirits of the earth. Each sunrise would bring new survival, new fear, new wonder. Because on Jurassic Earth, life never stops moving, and in that rhythm, that endless cycle of growth and destruction, our fragile species might just find its place. The question is not whether we could survive. It's what we would become. Would we remain human or become something else entirely? The story continues deep within the forests of the Jurassic world. Time on Earth is not a straight line. It's a circle, endlessly reshaping itself. Land becomes sea. Mountains crumble into sand, oceans rise and fall, and new continents are born. Every few 100 million years, the planet resets. Continents drift together, collide, and tear apart. Volcanoes cover whole regions in fire, while glaciers grind mountains into dust. Each reset erases almost everything that came before. If any civilization had ever existed in one of those deep ages, the record of its presence would be buried far beneath our feet, melted, crushed, and reformed into something unrecognizable. To understand this cycle, imagine a book written in sand. Each wave that touches it erases the words, leaving only faint impressions. Earth does the same with time. Fossils, cities, even entire species, all are washed away by geology itself. Now travel back around 300 million years to when the supercontinent Pangaea was whole. Forests of giant ferns covered its surface, stretching from what is now Antarctica to Europe. Massive dragonflies filled the air, their wings wider than a human's arms. The air was thick with oxygen. Life was abundant and strange. This was long before dinosaurs, long before mammals. yet the land was alive, vibrant, and full of potential. It's easy to wonder, could intelligence have evolved here in a form we no longer recognize? If we think of civilization as technology, we might say no. But intelligence doesn't have to mean machines. It could mean awareness, cooperation, even art, things that rarely leave fossils. A civilization of beings made mostly of organic material could vanish completely. Nothing metallic, nothing digital, just traces of pattern, organization, or design lost as the rocks turned over for millions of years. Scientists studying deep time sometimes find strange clues, layers of sediment showing sudden chemical changes, carbon spikes, or unexplained heat patterns. Some could be volcanic activity or meteor impacts, but others remain uncertain. Could one of these ancient events mark the rise and fall of something intelligent? The Silurian hypothesis, proposed by astrophysicist Adam Frank and climatologist Gavin Schmidt, explores exactly that. They argue that if an industrial civilization had existed tens of millions of years ago, we'd only detect it through chemical signatures in rocks, synthetic compounds, plastics, carbon anomalies, isotopes that should not exist naturally, and they remind us, even our own age, with all its power and technology, will leave barely a whisper after a few million years. So maybe the signs of a forgotten civilization aren't in artifacts at all, but in the patterns of Earth itself. The sudden rise of oxygen 2 billion years ago, known as the Great Oxidation Event, the mysterious warming and cooling cycles that seem faster than nature should allow, the odd bursts of radiation or metal concentrations deep in ancient strata. We explain them as natural, and perhaps they are. But it's also possible that nature has had help before. There's a quiet hum to this planet, a rhythm that feels ancient and familiar. Each age of life thinks it's the first, the greatest, the only one that matters. But time has no favourites. Everything returns to silence. If another civilization once rose before us, it would have faced the same truth we do, that nature always wins. Ice erases metal, fire erases stone, time erases memory. All that remains is energy moving forward, ready to begin again. As you breathe slowly and listen to the soft sounds around you, imagine the continents drifting silently in the dark. Volcanoes glowing beneath clouds of ash, forests stretching endlessly across alien landscapes. The same sun shining long before we ever opened our eyes. Every layer of rock beneath you is a chapter of Earth's forgotten story, and somewhere, deep within those pages, there might still be an echo, a trace of another intelligence, waiting quietly to be rediscovered. In the next part, we'll follow those traces into the lost continents, places like Lemuria, Mu, and Atlantis, myths that may hold fragments of memory from a world before ours. For now, let the thought fade and the mind drift. The planet turns, time continues, and the story deepens. The idea of lost continents has lived in human memory for thousands of years. Across every culture, There are stories of lands that once existed, full of knowledge and beauty, swallowed by the sea or buried beneath the earth. The names change: Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, Hyperborea, but the theme is the same: a world that vanished, leaving only fragments of memory. It's easy to dismiss these tales as legend, yet when you listen closely, they carry patterns that feel ancient and familiar, as if passed down from a time before written history. In Plato's writings, Atlantis was described as a great island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, today known as the Strait of Gibraltar. A civilization advanced in architecture, philosophy, and science. Its people, he said, were powerful, but pride led to their downfall. In a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis sank beneath the waves. Most scholars treat this as allegory, a moral warning about arrogance and decay. But others ask, what if the story was a fading echo of something real? Ocean floors are vast and unexplored. Only a fraction of the seafloor has been mapped in detail. Beneath layers of silt and sediment could lie forgotten cities, mountains, and coastlines from ages when sea levels were much lower than today. At the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, massive glaciers melted and oceans rose by more than 100 meters. Entire coastal civilizations, if any existed, would have disappeared beneath the water, leaving almost nothing behind. Even now, sonar scans near India, Japan, and the Caribbean reveal mysterious shapes: symmetrical stone formations, stair-like structures, roads leading into darkness. Most are likely natural formations, but some don't look natural at all. In the Indian Ocean, the Gulf of Cambay hides the ruins of what might be one of the world's oldest cities. Under 30 meters of water lie geometric patterns that resemble walls, plazas, and foundations. Carbon samples from artifacts there suggest ages older than any known civilization. If that's true, history may need rewriting. Off the coast of Japan, near Yonaguni, a stepped pyramid rises from the ocean floor. Its angles are sharp, its faces smooth, as if carved. Some geologists insist it's natural, sculpted by currents and erosion. Others believe it was built by human hands long before the known record of mankind. Across the globe, similar stories appear. The Doggerland Plains beneath the North Sea once connected Britain to mainland Europe, home to people who hunted and built communities. Now it lies buried under cold water, a silent memory of how quickly Earth can change. And then there's Lemuria, a land once thought to stretch across the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Though modern science considers it a myth, the idea came from real geological puzzles, the discovery of similar fossils and rock types on continents now separated by thousands of miles. Before we knew about plate tectonics, Lemuria was the simplest explanation. Maybe it wasn't real, or maybe it was, not as a single continent, but as a memory of lands long vanished beneath shifting oceans. Every ancient story about a lost world, whether from Greece, India, or South America, seems to share the same rhythm. A golden age, a warning ignored, a fall. and then silence. Perhaps these myths are not about one event, but many civilizations that rose and fell repeatedly across deep time, each leaving echoes in the dreams of those who came after. Maybe the stories of Atlantis and Lemuria aren't about geography at all. Maybe they're about memory itself, humanity's instinctive sense that we've been here before. When you look at the night sky, you're seeing light from the past. Stars shining millions of years ago, still reaching us across time. Perhaps our planet does the same, radiating faint memories, not in light, but in myths and patterns, waiting for us to listen. We dig for answers in the ground, but the oldest stories might live in our collective imagination. A shared echo that says, "You were not the first." The earth remembers in its own way, through rhythm, through silence, through the rising and falling of seas that keep our secrets buried in blue. The waves you hear outside your window tonight could be rolling over mountains that once touched the sky. The air you breathe has passed through lungs of creatures from forgotten worlds. Every heartbeat you feel connects to that endless cycle: creation, destruction, renewal. And still, the question lingers softly in the background of time. How many worlds has this planet already seen rise and fall before us? How many times has it started over, washing everything clean, ready to begin again? As the night deepens, let that thought settle like slow rain on stone. A reminder that the ground beneath you is older than memory, and that its silence may not mean emptiness, but wisdom. The further we look into Earth's history, the more questions appear. Strange objects, unexplained formations, and chemical traces buried deep within stone challenge what we think we know about our past. Archaeologists call them anomalies, things that shouldn't exist where they do. They are scattered whispers across time, fragments that don't fit the known story. Some of them can be explained through nature, others remain stubbornly mysterious. In South Africa, miners once found small metallic spheres embedded in rock estimated to be billions of years old. Each sphere was perfectly round, with carved grooves running along its middle. Geologists argued they were natural formations created by mineral processes, but others pointed out that they were too symmetrical, too deliberate to be random. Imagine holding such a sphere in your hand, knowing it came from a layer of earth that existed long before dinosaurs, long before any creature we'd recognize as intelligent. Could it be an artifact, or is it simply the earth showing how strange and perfect nature can be? In Russia's Ural Mountains, strange spiral-shaped objects were discovered in ancient riverbeds. They were microscopic, tiny metal coils made of tungsten and molybdenum, metals used today in advanced engineering. Tests showed they were thousands of years old, far older than any known industrial activity. Were they natural crystals, fragments from an unknown process? No one truly knows. Stories like these often spread beyond science into legend, but even scientists admit that Earth's history holds gaps we can't yet fill. There are rock layers with sharp, unnatural lines, as if something heated them from within. There are deposits of rare metals concentrated in ways that resemble industrial waste. There are isotopes, radioactive traces, and magnetic anomalies that defy easy explanation. None of this proves that an ancient civilization once existed, but all of it reminds us how incomplete our picture of the past really is. Think of the Antikythera mechanism, a complex device found off the coast of Greece in a shipwreck from over 2,000 years ago. A precise system of bronze gears that could predict eclipses and planetary positions. For centuries, it was an isolated discovery, technology too advanced for its time. If one such object could survive from our recorded past, what could be hiding from ages before writing, before memory, before humanity? If even one machine, one tool, or one artificial structure survived from a forgotten age, it might be unrecognizable, eroded, fused, or transformed into stone. To the casual eye, it might look like part of the landscape itself. Perhaps the greatest clue lies not in objects, but in patterns of energy and chemistry. Geologists studying ancient strata have found strange global spikes in carbon dioxide, methane, and heavy metals. Events that resemble our own industrial footprint, sudden warming, mass extinctions, ocean acidification, yet happening long before we existed. The Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, around 56 million years ago, is one such event. In just a few thousand years, a blink of geological time, global temperatures rose dramatically. Carbon flooded the atmosphere. The oceans changed colour, turning acidic. Many species died. The cause remains unknown. Some say it was volcanic activity or methane release, but the pattern, fast, intense, global, looks eerily familiar. Could it be that another species once reached a point of industrialization and burned itself out, leaving only a faint chemical scar? It's only a question, but one worth asking. If intelligence did rise before us, perhaps it learned the same lessons we are now learning, that growth has limits and that nature always reclaims what it's given. Maybe that civilization didn't destroy itself. Maybe it simply faded, integrated back into the world that created it. The more we learn about Earth, the more it feels alive. Not just a planet, but a system that grows, corrects, and renews. When one age ends, another begins. When one species falls silent, another takes its place. In that silence, deep within the rock and water, something might still remain. Not machines or cities, but the memory of their heat, their chemistry, their breath. The earth remembers in temperature, in sediment, in magnetism. It records everything, but in a language we're only beginning to read. And maybe, as we learn to understand it, we're not uncovering their story, but glimpsing our own reflection millions of years apart. The same curiosity, the same ambition, the same fragile hope that we will last longer than the world allows. As the air grows still and your breathing slows, imagine those forgotten layers far beneath you, ancient traces of something that once lived, thought, and dreamed. Perhaps they too looked up at the same stars, wondering if they were alone. Perhaps, in some distant sense, they were us. Human beings have always tried to make sense of the unknown. When something cannot be explained, we turn it into story. And sometimes stories carry more truth than we realize. All across the world, cultures separated by oceans and ages tell strangely similar tales. Floods that erased civilizations, gods who descended from the sky, knowledge passed from mysterious visitors who vanished without a trace. How could people from distant continents who never met describe the same kinds of events? Maybe myths are memory, not fiction, but ancient recollection, softened and reshaped by time. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, beings who came from above and taught humanity agriculture, astronomy, and writing. In Mesoamerica, the Maya told of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who brought wisdom, only to disappear, promising to return. In India's Vedic texts, there are Vimanas, flying chariots powered by sound and light, described with uncanny technical detail. And in the Bible, there are the Nephilim, the giants born of sons of God and daughters of men. Across cultures, the symbols repeat beings from the sky, lost knowledge, a great flood, and the rebuilding of civilization. It's as if every human story begins after an ending, a restart following catastrophe. Geologists have found that around 12,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened. The climate shifted suddenly. Glaciers melted at a speed unseen before. Sea levels rose rapidly. This period, known as the Younger Dryas, coincides with legends of destruction told from Egypt to South America. Was it a comet impact? A solar storm? A geological pulse of the planet itself? Whatever the cause, the result was the same: extinction, chaos, and rebirth. If there were any advanced cultures before that event, they would have vanished almost overnight, leaving only scattered survivors to rebuild, people who might later tell stories of gods and lost worlds. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, the idea that deep inside every human mind lives a shared reservoir of symbols and memories. Maybe this collective memory holds fragments of something much older than humanity itself. Perhaps the same patterns that shaped the myths of Atlantis, the Great Flood, and the sky gods are echoes from a forgotten time. We might not consciously remember, but somewhere in the fabric of our imagination, the memory persists, a faint vibration repeating across generations. Even in modern times, art and dreams often revisit the same themes: ancient cities glowing in twilight, giant machines buried under sand, beings of light descending to teach and vanish. Writers, painters, and visionaries describe these images without ever having met each other. It's as if something deep within us keeps replaying the same story, urging us to remember what was lost. Maybe myth isn't invention. Maybe it's translation, the human mind trying to express what it once knew in the only language it still remembers. When you listen to rain or watch waves moving endlessly against the shore, you're witnessing the same rhythm that shaped every age of life before us. Each drop, each wave erases and rewrites, carrying memory forward in patterns too vast for us to see. The ancients tried to preserve what they could, in stone, in stars, in ritual. They built pyramids aligned with constellations that shift only over thousands of years. They carved calendars into rock to track cycles longer than a human life. Maybe these weren't just acts of worship, but acts of remembrance, silent attempts to leave behind a message for whoever would come next. And now, here we are, the latest storytellers in an unbroken chain of memory, looking backward into the mist and asking the same question: who came before us? Close your eyes. Imagine every myth you've ever heard: the flood, the fall, the visitors from the sky, the forgotten cities. Now imagine they're all fragments of one great ancient story, a story written by the planet itself, the story of rise and fall, of creation and loss, of life remembering itself through us. The human mind may have forgotten the names and faces of those who came before, but the earth hasn't. It remembers in stone, in ocean currents, in the quiet pulse of time that beats beneath your feet. And as you listen to that rhythm, you may realize we are not separate from those lost civilizations. We are their continuation, their dream, living again. Every civilization believes it will last forever, but the planet has other plans. Again and again, life on Earth has reached a peak, only to be wiped away and reborn in a new form. These are the great resets of time. Each one erases almost everything that came before. Each one writes the next chapter of the same endless story. The most dramatic of these resets are known as mass extinctions. There have been at least 5, maybe more, each one changing the course of life completely. And in each, there's a moment of silence afterward, when the world pauses before starting again. About 445 million years ago, during the Ordovician extinction, nearly all marine life vanished. The seas froze, then boiled, as ice ages and volcanoes fought for control. From that silence, new species emerged, tougher, faster, stranger. Later came the Permian extinction, 250 million years ago. 95% of all species died. Forests turned to ash. Oceans turned toxic. The air itself was poison. It was the closest Earth ever came to becoming empty. Yet from that emptiness, life returned. Reptiles became dominant. Then came dinosaurs, and the world began again. Each time the reset clears the board, but never completely. Something remains, just enough to rebuild. And each new cycle climbs a little higher, learns a little more. Maybe intelligence itself is part of that rhythm, an inevitable product of time and adaptation. If so, we might not be the first to reach this level, only the latest. The planet could have hosted others before us, species that rose to mastery, touched the stars of their own age, and then vanished when the Earth shifted beneath them. 66 million years ago, another reset came. A massive asteroid struck near the Yucatan Peninsula, ending the age of dinosaurs. The sky burned, oceans boiled, darkness covered the planet for years. When the light returned, the world was quiet, and mammals began to rise. From that catastrophe, everything we know was made possible. Even destruction serves creation here. It's a reminder that extinction isn't always an ending. Sometimes it's the beginning of something unimaginable. Now imagine the same story applied not to species, but to civilizations. Each age rising in confidence, reshaping the planet, testing the limits of nature, and then, when balance breaks, falling back into silence. Maybe we're living in just another cycle. Maybe this is what the planet does. It lets life build, thrive, and then resets the stage. The ruins of the last act become the raw material for the next. When you look at the ruins of past empires, stone cities swallowed by jungle, glass towers crumbling into dust, you're seeing that pattern repeating in miniature. It's not failure, it's the rhythm of existence. Some scientists even suggest that Earth itself behaves like a single living organism, balancing its own systems. If one form of life grows too dominant, too destructive, the planet adjusts. Not out of cruelty, but necessity. It finds equilibrium again, no matter the cost. Maybe the great extinctions weren't random. Maybe they were the planet's way of healing itself, of keeping life in balance, ensuring no one force lasts forever. And if that's true, our age will end the same way. Not in punishment, but in renewal. Because nothing here is permanent. Not species, not cities, not even memory. The silence that follows destruction is not empty. It's full of potential, a moment between breaths, a pause before creation begins again. Somewhere in the fossil record, we may one day find a faint chemical trace, a mineral scar, or a layer of dust, the echo of another world that rose and fell long before ours, and maybe one day the same will be true of us. When the next species looks down through the layers of rock, they might find our signature, plastic, concrete, steel, and wonder who we were. They'll ask the same question we ask now. Were we the first? Or just another verse in an endless song the earth keeps singing again and again through time? As the night stretches on and your mind softens into quiet, think of the resets not as destruction, but as breathing. Inhale, exhale, creation, renewal, rise, fall, rise again. The heartbeat of the planet has never stopped, and we are part of its pulse, fleeting but alive within its rhythm. For most scientists, the question of earlier civilizations isn't fantasy, it's an open, testable idea. The Silurian hypothesis, proposed in 2018 by NASA's Gavin Schmidt and astrophysicist Adam Frank, asks whether we could detect an industrial civilization in the geological record if it existed millions of years ago. Their answer was clear. Maybe, but it would be difficult. The Earth constantly recycles itself. The surface layer we live on is temporary. Every few 100 million years, ocean floors sink into the mantle, mountains erode into dust, and even continents vanish. Almost all direct evidence, buildings, tools, bones would be gone after just a few million years. So scientists look for indirect signs, long-lasting chemical fingerprints that industry leaves behind. One of those fingerprints is carbon isotope imbalance. When humans burn fossil fuels, we release carbon-12, a lighter isotope that changes the planet's natural ratio of carbon atoms. If another civilization had done something similar in the distant past, that signal might still be visible in ancient rock layers. So far, we've found none that clearly fit, but there are curious spikes. One of the most studied examples is the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, about 56 million years ago. In geological records, scientists found a sudden, sharp rise in global temperature, 5 to 8 degrees Celsius, in just a few thousand years. There's a massive release of carbon, widespread species extinction, and disruption of ocean chemistry. It looks chemically like a modern industrial event, only far older. Most geologists believe it was caused by volcanic activity or methane release from melting permafrost. Still, it remains one of the closest natural analogues to what our own civilization is doing now. Another strange marker is plastiglomerate, a new type of rock humans are currently creating. It's a mixture of melted plastic fused with sand, coral, and volcanic material. In millions of years, future geologists might find it as a thin, shiny layer in sediment, a permanent signature of our existence. If a similar layer existed deep in ancient strata, we'd likely miss it. The rock cycle would have melted or buried it long ago. That's why, if advanced civilizations lived during earlier geological eras, their traces could have been destroyed before we ever appeared. We can also look beyond Earth. Venus may once have had oceans, rain, and a mild climate, before a runaway greenhouse effect turned it into a furnace. Mars shows dry riverbeds, deltas, and minerals that form only in water. If life or intelligence ever arose there, it was erased by time, leaving only stone and dust. When scientists search for technosignatures on other planets, like industrial gases, radio signals, or artificial light, they're also learning how fragile such signs are. Even our own global network of satellites, cities, and data centers would vanish quickly without maintenance. Within 10 million years, the Earth could appear untouched again. The fossil record also holds subtle puzzles. In the Devonian period, 370 million years ago, complex forests appeared almost overnight, a biological explosion that altered the atmosphere and cooled the planet. Some researchers wonder if that sudden change could reflect not just evolution, but chemical manipulation of the environment by a form of organized life. There's no proof, just patterns that resemble what we're doing today. Archaeologists sometimes mention Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a real site, 12,000 years old, built before agriculture or writing. It contains enormous stone pillars, animal carvings, and astronomical alignments. Its builders remain unknown. It proves that complex organization and symbolic art existed far earlier than we once thought, and it reminds us how much we still don't know about our own beginnings, let alone those that might have come before. Science doesn't claim that other civilizations existed. It simply shows that given enough time, their traces could vanish, just as ours will one day. Everything we build, everything we know, will eventually return to dust, leaving only a few subtle chemical clues. So the question remains, if another intelligent species once walked this planet, would we ever truly know? Or are we, right now, part of the same repeating pattern, intelligence rising briefly from the dust, reaching for the stars and fading back into silence? The evidence we have so far is geological, not mythical. Layers of rock, isotopes, fossils, and data. But those layers whisper the same lesson. Time forgets everything except change, and that change, that rhythm of rise and fall, might be the oldest story the earth has ever told. Everything that lives, builds, and dreams here is temporary, but nothing is meaningless. Every era, every species, every civilization adds something to the planet's memory, even if it doesn't last. The energy of life never disappears. It only changes form. If another civilization once thrived on this planet, it's gone now, but its influence may still echo, not in cities or machines, but in the chemistry of the soil, the tilt of the planet, or the knowledge hidden in DNA. Because life remembers what works. Evolution builds upon what came before. Our cells carry ancient signatures, tiny biological fossils linking us to every creature that ever lived. The same carbon atoms in your body once belonged to forests, oceans, and maybe even another intelligence that looked up at the same stars millions of years ago. We are not separate from the past. We are the past, continuing itself. It's possible that we're the first species to ask these questions aloud. It's also possible that countless others asked them before us. Each civilization may have believed it was permanent, only to fade like wind over sand. And if intelligence is a recurring pattern, maybe that's the purpose. Not to last forever, but to reawaken, to remember, to wonder again. The story of life on Earth isn't about domination, it's about curiosity, the desire to understand what came before and what lies ahead. One day, far in the future, Earth will move on without us. The continents will shift again. The oceans will rise and fall. Mountains will turn to dust. Our buildings, satellites, and data will vanish. But the elements that made us, the iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, the carbon in our breath, will still be here, part of the cycle, ready to form something new. Another age, another mind, another chance to dream. As you listen now, think about the silence that surrounds the planet when night falls. Beneath that quiet surface lies an unbroken record of creation, destruction, and renewal, a rhythm that has never stopped. Every civilization, including ours, is just one wave in an endless ocean of time. And every wave leaves a pattern on the shore before it fades. That pattern is what we call history. We build, we learn, we imagine, and we pass on what we can. The rest is carried by wind, water, and memory. So as your eyes grow heavy, let your thoughts drift like dust across the ages. Imagine the world millions of years from now, new life breathing through old ruins, sunlight touching the same mountains we once climbed, oceans whispering over lands that remember our names only through stone and silence. Sleep knowing that you are part of that story, not apart from it, but within it. A living moment in the longest tale ever told, the story of Earth, dreaming of itself. Good night.